Washtenaw County occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi peoples. The Washtenaw County Democratic Party recognizes historic indigenous communities in Michigan and those who are forcibly removed from their homelands. Washtenaw County occupies land ceded in the 1807 Treaty of Detroit. In offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm indigenous history and experiences. Thank you. Now, Sharon, if you want to say a few words, this is your chance.
Just want to emphasize, as people mentioned, it's an all hands on deck election, and we'd love to have you volunteer with us, whether it's, a few hours a month or regularly. We need volunteers. We pretty much have a match for whatever you can do. We need folks who can code, folks who enjoy tabling, folks who enjoy canvassing. We also have a particular need for people who enjoy creating memes for social media and posting on social media to sort of expand our network and presence on social media. And also would folks who would enjoy writing for our newsletter and people who enjoy coding for our website. And at the moment, we're just launching our Get Out the Vote and efforts to inform voters. So we have a big need for people who enjoy tabling. Our visibility committee has tables throughout Washtenaw County at parades and events and farmers markets. So please get in touch with me and I'll connect you with the visibility committee. We're also looking for people who can help make quiz cards for our political Jeopardy game that we use at the farmers market. So if you've always wanted to be a Jeopardy quiz master, you can help with political Jeopardy. The other area that we really need help with is with our precinct organizing committee that coordinates Get Out the Vote events throughout the county, including phone banking, texting, and delivering the voter guide and literature to voters' doorsteps. And if you want to get involved with precinct organizing, you can either contact me or email precinct organizing at poc@washtenaw-dems.org. We're also still interested in having people become precinct delegates. And those people are sort of the link between the Democratic Party and voters in their area and neighborhood. And you can still run as a write-in candidate. And for information about that, you can also email precinct organizing.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Any questions for Sharon? No. Then I'm going to ask Jennifer Collins if she'd be willing to be the first speaker. Debbie Dingle has not yet arrived, and so I don't think Sue Shink has either. So Representative Collins, would you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, hi. How is everybody? Again, I'm sorry, as I was saying, we got back from the Mackinac Policy Conference, so it's been a little bit on the tiring side, and I lost my voice after 3 days of talking to everybody. And our daughter got married last weekend, so you put the two together, and it's been quite a time. I'm really happy to be here. I want to introduce myself to those who don't know me. I have been in office now for about 19 months. This is my first time in elected office, and previous to that, I was a journalist for 40 years and mostly worked for the New York Times. I lived overseas for 20 years. My husband and I met at the University of Michigan. I'm born and raised in Ann Arbor. And then we basically both had careers. He worked for Reuters, which is an international broadcasting company. And I worked mostly freelance, but almost exclusively for the New York Times. We came back after being our last posting was in Cairo, Egypt, and the Arab Spring happened, and it was really quite dangerous to be there with 3 children. And so we got out of there and my mother had been wanting us to move back to Michigan for 20 years, and I said, how about tomorrow? Because we obviously needed to be in a safe space. So I've been back in Ann Arbor for 14 years, and during that time was reporting a lot on Detroit. And I was at the first reporter, one of the first on the scene for the New York Times at the Oxford school shooting. And I had never covered a school shooting before. And it was extremely upsetting to see how gun violence affects an entire community. So I covered that story for 2 days, and as I was on my way back from the vigil, the children's candlelight vigil on Friday night, I thought, I just turned 60. Maybe I should be doing something else at this point in my life. And to that end, a month later, I got a phone call asking if I would ever think of running for office. And I said, that's a ridiculous idea. And now, of course, here I am. But the reason that I was asked to run was because this is a very tricky swing district. Ann Arbor usually is considered kind of a safe haven of progressiveness. And in this case, this is Northwest Ann Arbor, going all the way up into Livingston County. So I go up to Hamburg and Genoa townships. And then it goes west to western Washtenaw, including sort of around Webster Township, and then it goes all the way into Linden and into Jackson County. So it's 3 counties, 9 townships, and very few cities. I have the village of Pinckney, a sliver of Ann Arbor, but otherwise I have parks and farms and rivers and lakes. I have the chain of lakes, which is fabulous. And I have come to really, really appreciate this district. It has a lot of beauty. The one thing that brings it together, because it's Ann Arbor, very liberal, all the way up to Howell, which is obviously very conservative, is everybody seems to care about the environment, whether it's on a recreational level with hunting, fishing, and boating, or whether it's more in Ann Arbor around climate change. And of course, our farmers, I have a lot of farms, and I'm happy I sit on the agriculture committee because I do have a lot of farms, and they care a lot about the environment and, of course, know about climate change. So it's been fascinating. And the way that I've really, kind of decided to run again, or the way I've decided to perform in this district, is I've built real relationships with my Republicans. I spend a lot of time up in Livingston County. I've become quite close to the supervisor in Genoa Township, who's Bill Rogers, whose brother Mike Rogers is running against Alyssa Slotkin, which is kind of awkward, but we, try to joke about it. And I've become very close to Patrick Hole, who's my supervisor in Hamburg Township. And I've even brought them in on legislative issues around PFAS, around water affordability. Senator Chang and I toured the wastewater plant up in Genoa Township with Bill Rogers and their utility director up there, who's incredible and knows so much and has been helping actually write the water affordability legislation. And he said, I've never had a representative who, worked with me like this. And he's a brilliant man who's been a water utility director since 2006. So I also have, work across the aisle as best I can in Lansing. I feel like 50% of my district is Republicans, and I need to have them feel represented. But I haven't given up any of my progressive values. And of course, I vote, as you would expect me to, on climate change, on reproductive rights, on voting. I've consistently voted with the party. But in this process, had big conversations when my townships were upset about the solar siting. They disagree with me on that vote because they worry about local control. But, we have relationships, so we can talk about it. And I say, look, if you ever ran into a huge problem, you would call me and I would try to help. So that is kind of how I plan to run for office again. I wear shirts that say Jennifer Conlon for state rep. They don't say Democrat. And I start conversations at the door. And when somebody says, particularly up in Ann Arbor, I'm not worried about saying I'm a Democrat, but I knock down to very low Democratic scores on the app that we use. In Ann Arbor, it's hard to find anybody who's less than a 70% score as a Dem. I knock down to 30% up in Livingston because I might find somebody who is a Republican who's pro-choice, or is a Republican who, is a swing voter, is my independent. So those are the votes I need. I won by almost 6 points, even though this is a 52-48 district. But this time I'm more concerned because with Trump on the ballot, I think my pretty MAGA Republicans up there will come out in full force. And they didn't come out, I don't think, in the midterms because it wasn't a presidential election. So I think it's going to be a pretty tough race. I'm running against 2 very extreme Republicans who have a primary. And so I get to watch them kind of battle it out. I do think in the end, One is from Northfield Township and one is in Livingston. I do think the Livingston candidate will probably be the one who wins. So I'm gathering a very big team as I did the last time. I knocked about 10,000 doors myself the last time. I'll probably try to do more this time. And I have to hold this seat because we have to hold the majority. And there are six of us. If we lose our seats, we don't keep the majority. And I'm one of them. So it's going to be a tough race. And anybody who wants to help, I'd really appreciate it. I need door knockers. I need phone bank people. I need, people to have meet and greets for me and anything that can be done. I'm a good fundraiser, so I'll keep doing that. But it's doors and dollars. So that's how I plan to win again. And yeah, I love the job. I want to keep it. And I don't think anyone in Ann Arbor wants one of these other candidates to be representing them. So with any luck, I'll get it done. And
Thank
I'm happy to answer any questions too.
Jennifer, let me just ask if Debbie Dingle is here. I don't see her in the list, but sometimes she comes in under the name of an assistant. So if Debbie Dingle is in the meeting, if you could please unmute yourself. If not, we'll take some questions for you. I don't see her. This is how we run this part of the meeting. Essentially, people kind of pop in and pop out.
Yeah, I know Debbie had a very busy schedule this coming weekend. So, we usually do the Dexter Forum together and she couldn't do that and I couldn't either. So she might not be here.
I know she wrote me this morning she planned to come, but she's not here yet. So any questions for Jennifer Conlon? Just raise your hand and then unmute yourself. Well, I'll ask one. What could the Washtenaw County Democratic Party as an organization do to help you?
So the density of my vote is in Ann Arbor. So we have to get out the vote in Ann Arbor because in Washtenaw generally, Dexter's, pretty blue now, more blue than it was. Because I am very worried Livingston's going to organize to kind of try to beat me and get those people out who are against me. So who are, but I do feel like I'm a little concerned with what's happened in the Middle East about my graduate students getting out and voting because mostly what I have in Northwest Ann Arbor are a lot of grad students who live around North Campus and who live around that Broadway area. So I do have that part of Ann Arbor with those apartment buildings and, think those. So that's really the density of my vote is Ann Arbor. And if they don't turn out, I'm really in trouble. So it's going to be a big, GOTV moment in the fall.
That in many ways is a national issue. I'm not sure what the Washtenaw Democratic Party can do on that question, aside from its usual get out the vote efforts.
Yeah, we'll just door knock a lot and explain the importance of voting this time. And hopefully, the Biden-Harris team we have the one campaign, as you know, and they'll be knocking for the top of the ticket. So we're just going to have to blanket the streets.
Okay. Any other questions for Jennifer Conlon?
I have a question.
Certainly.
Representative Conlon, how do you think the issue around permitting for solar and wind is going to affect the election? Do you see that as a real key driver for the Republicans?
Well, yes. I mean, they've tried to have this ballot initiative that doesn't seem to be succeeding from the last time I read something about it because they were trying to, have an initiative to get on the ballot to go back to local control on this. It is a tricky issue because in my district, their local control is very important. I've assured them that when it comes to aggregate and, gravel mines and all that, I do believe in local control, but we have such a problem with solar and meeting our needs and the governor's, goals to be fossil fuel free by 2040. We do need to have more solar and wind. And the problem is some bad developers sort of came in initially, didn't work well with the local townships. So the local townships got very skittish about it and then sort of started to say no to these developers, even when they were good ones coming in. No solar developer really now after what happened with some of the bad cases wants to come into a community that doesn't want them. And this is also very big projects, 50 megawatts for solar, 100 megawatts for wind. And it's only if the, one issue that Republicans can understand, and this isn't even a Republican Democratic issue. I have a lot of Democrats on townships who also are against this, but the issue can just be that they feel that, well, the Republican side would be this is a farmer's right or a landowner's right to tell them they can't, lease their land is to take away an individual right. And some of these farms need this because they basically don't have the next generation to take over the farm. So they can lease this land for 30 years. It can still have pollinators and it can still have sheep graze. It can still do agricultural, work on the side, and it doesn't ruin the land. So we just have to get these messages out about what those myths are, that people think they kill birds in the sky. But I think it is going to certainly be an issue for me. They will run against me with this, that I want to take away local control. And I really don't, other than in this instance. And we built in a lot of local control. I, myself, and another rep, Reggie Miller, who has a district similar to mine, basically, the developer has to work with the local authority for the first, 4 to 6 months, and before they can go to the Michigan Public Service Commission with a problem. So we're really hoping that this will, work out, but it's going to be tough.
Thank you very much. Let me ask again if either Congresswoman Dingell or Senator Shink is in the room. And if you are, to unmute yourself. No. Are there any other questions for Jennifer Conlon? Going once?
This is Colin. I have a question. What was the largest challenge you face as a new candidate, and do you see that playing in your second race as well?
I mean, I think it was the hardest thing as a new candidate. It was an open seat, so I wasn't running against an incumbent, but obviously people didn't know who I was. So, my last name, there's been a lot of judges in Washtenaw who have been Conlons, which is a nonpartisan, nonpartisan position. So I think that was helpful in Washtenaw, but Livingston County, obviously didn't have any idea who I was. So it was really getting out and talking and being in a lot of events. So I think I won't have as much of that now. And of course, as I said, I show up at the opening of an envelope up in Livingston County. I'm at everything they do up there that I can be. So I've really built relationships and I think people know me. So in terms of running again, I do think I, have that big advantage this time of being the incumbent.
Thank you. Actually, I observed that Sue Shink just joined the meeting. So Representative Conlon, if it's all right with you, I'm going to turn the floor over to her.
Yes, thank you so much for letting me speak today.
Thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate that. And we hope to see you more frequently in the future. Take care. Senator Shink, would you care to unmute yourself?
Hi there. Good morning.
Good morning.
So is it my turn to talk?
It is.
Okay. Thank you. I have a whole list of things that I want to talk about. So I'm excited about this. First of all, I just want to say to everybody, I really appreciate the opportunity to serve you. And I know that can sound cliche, but I mean it. It is amazing. And then when I go out in the community or I'm in Lansing and I see my constituents doing the amazing things that they're doing, whether it's improving education or fighting for civil rights or cleaning up the environment, it's just really cool because Washtenaw County is a powerhouse in this state. We are doing so many good things. And the other thing that we do really, really well is work together. So being able to work with the Washtenaw County delegation makes a huge difference. We support each other, we tag team, and we're getting things done. And so I want everyone to know that, how much I appreciate you, how much I appreciate the other electeds in Washtenaw County, because we are an amazing team. not always a team that gets the support that we need from the rest of the state, but we're making our way. So I thought today it might be nice to talk about some of the things that I've been working on as chair of the Judiciary and Michigan Department of Corrections Appropriations budget. It's what I've been spending most of my time on for the past couple of months, although there's a whole bunch of other things. Any day there's like 15 to 20 things that we work on. So these are things that are near and dear to the hearts of many of the members of this group. The Supreme Court Administrative Office is the entity that supports the courts in Michigan. And so it's their budget, but it goes to many different places. They're implementing a statewide case management system that is very important to the ability of our state to address fines and fees, which we're working on, the courts are working on. We're not quite there yet. Last year, I actually took an earmark to support higher security and some renovations at the district court in Ypsilanti Township so that we could fit a statewide transparency system into the budget. And I talked to the Supreme Court administrator last week, and he said that it's being implemented and it's going to make a huge difference, and that people should already be seeing some of the fruits of that work. So that would mean that a researcher would be able to go into the computer. I guess that's kind of nebulous, but we'll be able to access the case details for cases across the state. And then they're going to be able to look for things like racial disparities, income disparities. Is there a judge that is convicting people at a higher rate than other judges? And this is something that the Washtenaw Equity Project had said that they needed desperately. That's an effort that I helped get funded back when I was a commissioner. And they've done some good work. And one of the stumbling blocks that they found was that they just couldn't get good data for everything. And so we are working to make a difference there. And then there have been a lot of juvenile justice reforms. One that remains out there is that in felony cases, not all juveniles across our state have access to a court-appointed or funded attorney. In Washtenaw County, they do. So we're doing it right here. But if you're a child in another county, you don't necessarily have a right to an attorney. And that makes me sick. So I have taken a strong stand on that. And I think we may actually get that taken care of in this year's budget. So there are a lot of people working on that. I'm not the only one. Again, it's a team effort, but we're making some headway and I'm really excited about that. We also have funded attorneys for kids who have been convicted of a felony and are appealing. So the State Appellate Defender Office now can help young people with their appeals. And that just wasn't the case before. So there's some things that you'd think were kind of no-brainers, and they hadn't been happening after 40 years of Republican rule of our legislature. There is a lot of work that remains to be done, even though we're working very hard. So I also chair the corrections budget. It's a $2 billion budget. And I think we've made some good progress there. But again, like, this is a system that wasn't made up to help people. It was devised to put people away and punish them on a daily basis. And so I believe that the corrections department is working towards people who are open to rehabilitation. And we have been able to make some headway. And remember, I've only been in office a year and a half, but we're making some changes that are really exciting. Now, thanks to the work of Felicia Brayback, and I supported on that, there is a program through Eastern Michigan University at Women's Huron Valley. And we were able to go talk to the women and hear their stories. And one woman actually said, because she is in college, her daughter enrolled in college. So her mom's in prison. Her daughter is taking cues from her mom to go and get her college degree. And that is going to change that family's future forever. So those things are exciting. There are at least 12 different universities and colleges, including community colleges, that are participating. I've been to some of the graduations. They're pretty amazing. Not everybody has access to those programs yet, and I am working with MDOC to continue to expand that. The other thing that's offered at the prisons now is vocational education. So somebody can come out of prison with the ability to be a mechanic, work in a construction company, trim trees for one of the utility companies, prepare to go to the last leg of truck driving school to get their CDL license. There are other things too, cosmetology, that's a very popular one, and then some medical technician programs as well. So there is a lot more focus on rehabilitation and preparing people for reentry into the system. And I've supported that and made change, because last year I was able to get into the budget a number of reentry programs that are peer-led. This is something that I learned about as a county commissioner and took it to the state with me. Nation Outside now has a contract with the Michigan Department of Corrections to supply reentry services that are peer-led in a number of counties across the state, not Washtenaw, but a lot of their members are here and are doing great work here. And so this really reduces recidivism and sets people up for success. So much so that MDOC wanted to have it under their control and is now allocating some of their own money, asking to allocate some of their own money toward peer-led reentry, which wasn't happening before. So I'm excited about that. We need to keep expanding it. Some of these programs, they reach a lot of people, but not enough. And then, so I just want to mention Goodwill also has a strong program, and they've been expanding. And then there are some other ones too. And then a really cool thing that I was able to see was that the Secretary of State went to Parnell Correctional Facility, so that's in my district in Jackson, and helped over 300 inmates who are going to be released in the next 6 months get their identification, their voter ID, and start the path to restoring their driver's licenses. So some of them were able to take care of it in one day. For some, it will take longer. They had lawyers on site. So over 300 people were getting their needs taken care of right then and there with the Secretary of State's mobile unit. That's really exciting. That is a big change in the way government serves the people. In the past, before Democrats were in charge of this, people would leave the prison with no ID. And I understand that that can happen from time to time still. We're working to correct that. But now that almost every single person who leaves the correctional system leaves with ID, leaves with voter registration. And many of them are leaving with a driver's license. They're also signed up for Medicaid and other services that they qualify for. So this is a big change. A lot of them are being handed off to a reentry program that is peer-led. So somebody who went through the same kind of things that they went through, who knows where they can get housing, who knows where they can find a job, those kinds of things. So it's pretty exciting. We still have a long way to go. I want everybody to know that I understand that. Eli, I don't want to take too long. I could talk for hours, but I have more to say, but I also can give somebody else a chance to talk if that's where we are.
Well, let me first ask Senator Shink if Debbie Dingle is in the room. She planned to join us, but she also had some other commitments, and it appears that she is not. So I think
Okay.
if it's all right with you, I'd like to open the floor for questions. We have a couple minutes for questions. Would that be okay? If someone has a question,
Sure.
would you please just use the raised hand function? This will allow me to call people in order instead of just unmuting. Any questions for Senator Shink? I'll ask one. So, sorry, Sharon Simonson, just raise your hand. Go ahead.
Hi, Sue. Could you say a bit about the Rural Health Center that's opening in Northfield? I want to thank you for that. Sue got 1.5 million, and it's finally opening very soon. Northfield Township for rural health.
Thank you, Sharon. So one of the things I've been working on is trying to get more money for our district, because we really didn't get much before, and we are changing that. We have some needs that have been unmet for a long time. And there's been, and I'm going to get the name wrong, but a group of residents who've been working on health equity in the county, and they identified a need for a health center in Whitmore Lake. And we were able to get funding. I was able to get funding as an earmark. So when you hear about pork, that's the kind of pork I'm bringing back to our community health centers. and it's going to open. And the thing is you would think, oh, well, Whitmore Lake isn't that far from Ann Arbor, but for some of the people, for quite a few of the people who live there, it is too far for them to access health services. Either they don't have transportation, they worry about how in the world am I going to get to Ann Arbor and park, or whatever it is. A lot of them struggle financially. This is federally qualified, so it's going to take people who don't have a lot of resources and make sure that they get the care that they need. It's huge for our community, absolutely huge. So thank you, Sharon.
Thank you. Audrey Anderson, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, Representative Shink. Can you hear me?
I can.
Senator, I'm sorry, Senator Shink. For the peer-led reentry program, are they able to go into the correction facilities to engage the inmates for reentry?
Yes, I don't think that is even across the board, but this is something that MDOC calls reaching in. And so they are supporting the expansion of this. Nation Outside is able to do that. And then there are a number of other programs that are able to reach in as well. One of the things that I have found and that I'm working to learn more about is that there can be a great program in one place, but that doesn't necessarily mean that another facility has that same program or that everybody can be reached. And so with the resources that are allocated to it now. So that's something I'm working on. So if you hear of people who need to have someone reach into them, I can help try to make that happen. It's not a guarantee, but a lot of times if I say, hey, what about something, it happens.
Thank you, because it doesn't seem to be the same across the board.
Mm-hmm.
I'm meeting with a representative this week who indicates that she does not go in for the reentry engagement. So thank you for addressing that and recognizing that it is not equal across the board for all correctional facilities.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I'm happy to work with you more on that to try to expand that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any further questions for Senator Shink? Seeing none, then I'm just say thank you so much for finding the time for this. I hope you're someplace where you're having some relaxation. Looks like you're not exactly wearing a business outfit.
No, I got a hoodie on.
So hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. I'm going to turn my camera off and just listen now.
Okay, thank you. I would like to recognize now the elected officials who are in this meeting. And I'll apologize from the start if I miss someone. Please send me a chat and I'll link it up if I do. So we have two state representatives, Carrie Reingans and Felicia Brabeck. We also have most of the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners. So there's Crystal Light, Caroline Saunders, Justin Hodge, and Annie Somerville. I also see two members of the Ann Arbor School Board of Trustees, Susan Basquette and Ernesto Corriero. And of course, Jennifer Conlon spoke, so you know that she's here. And John Reiser is also with us, and he's also an elected official. Did I miss anyone? Would any of the elected officials present care to take a minute or two to, if they want to convey any special messages to this group before we start the panels? Representative Reingans.
Okay, everybody, I'm really sorry. I am really appreciative that we have a Zoom option today. So I've been able to listen as I've gotten my fresh strawberries for strawberry shortcake and asparagus at the farmer's market today, so our family can eat deliciously tonight. But I wanted to tell folks, if you're trying to figure out what it is that you can do to help Democrats, I put Representative Conlon's link in the chat so we can always use donations to our frontline members. Reggie Miller is another one. And I will say, that the thing that you need to know as Democrats here in Washtenaw is that we have done a ton. And there is a chance that, or not a chance, a very likelihood that we will have what we call reverse coattails in Michigan, where we campaign on all the good that Democrats have done in the state in the last year and a half. And that will help lift Biden to get enough votes to save democracy, basically, since he's running against a convicted felon. We need to make sure that every time we talk about that, we mention that there's a convicted felon that is up for election, who may not even be able to vote for himself. So we do need to mention that for the general public. But in the meantime, we've done so much good things that we can campaign on. You can just have 4 or 5 talking points of what we've been able to do. They're tied to the Biden administration's messages. We've worked on infrastructure. We have the best clean energy package in the whole country. There's room for improvement of it, of course, but that ties to the Inflation Reduction Act that has the biggest investments in climate at the federal level. So if we message what we did here, it messages up to the top of the ticket too. If we talk about protecting our reproductive freedoms, we've done a lot of that at our state legislature. That translates to the national level as well. So there's a lot of talking points that we can give you that will translate up to the national level. And it's very easy to talk to voters and convince them that the parties are not the same. We are running a guy who's trying to save the planet and our freedoms, and we're running against a convicted felon who maybe can't even vote for himself. So just keep saying those things over and over.
Thank you so much. Amen. I'm going to say, Representative Braybeck.
Morning, everyone. The other thing that I would add to what Rep. Rankin just said was that and I know that so many of you volunteer so much time, all the time, but this election, being able to go out and knock doors, we have, I believe, in the 6th congressional district, the most frontliners of anywhere in the state. We have so many frontliners here in the 6th congressional. And so that means so many opportunities to go help those frontliners knock doors. And we know that that makes a difference. And so in addition to what Carrie said about supporting financially, which is vital, it's doors and dollars, being able to get out there with all of us knocking doors, particularly for our frontliners, so that we can return them back. And hopefully we want to obviously retain, but grow the majority. So thank you all for all that you do. And just wanted to add that little plug for knocking doors. Thanks,
Thank you
Eli.
so much. I also want to point out I made an error. We actually have a majority of the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners present. Jason Myashevsky is also with us. Thank you for letting me know that, Jason. Would any other of the other elected officials present care to say anything to this audience before we turn to the panels? Going once, going twice. Annie Somerville, Commissioner Somerville.
Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
We can.
I feel like I have to say this, and this is no shade to Rep. Rankin, because I love you. I've been looking at a lot of things in response to the verdict the other day, and I just want to highlight that we've had a lot of members of our community attacked for being convicted felons. And as much as I am glad that the former president is being held accountable, there are a lot of people in Washtenaw County who are never going to have access to jobs or housing because of that. And so I just want us as Democrats to keep that in mind. Donald Trump is a monster, and he absolutely deserves to be held accountable. But there are a lot of people in my district in particular who have been attacked over the last 3 years for being convicted felons. So I just want to put that at the top of everybody's mind when we're talking about the former president.
Thank you. I think now we should turn to the panels. I also want to point out before we do that, that on July 13th, the Programs Committee plans to have a program featuring the judges running in the 2 nonpartisan judicial races, so that they won't be on the ballot in August, but they will be in November. Just mark your calendars, July 13th. So I would like to now turn the floor over to Evan Milan, who will be the moderator of our first panel, which is the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners race candidates in District 5. So Evan, would you care to take the mic?
All right, thanks so much, Eli. I believe Mr. Peterson is not present. He was one of our 3 candidates for the panel discussion, but I do know Mr. Hodge and Ms. Mills-Chapman are here. So let me start by thanking both Mr. Hodge and Ms. Mills-Chapman for participating in the discussion today. So then the way it's going to run is each candidate will have 5 minutes for introductory remarks. We will proceed alphabetically between the 2 of them, Mr. Hodge and then Ms. Mills, and then go back and forth between the 2 of them. I will ask 2 or 3 questions depending on timing. And then, let's see, I'm reading off a piece of paper and I lost my place. So each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question. And when 30 seconds is up, a timer will ring a bell once. When the time is up, there you go. And then when the time is up completely, we'll have the bell ring twice, like that. And after I've asked the initial questions, I will open the floor up to the audience for some questions. Candidates will continue to rotate between the 2 of them alphabetically, taking turns. And at the end of the question period, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. The order of the closing statements will start with whomever was next in line to answer the question first. And with that, if Mr. Hodge would like to begin his opening statements, he has the floor.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Evan. I appreciate your moderating the panel here. And good morning, friends. I'm Justin Hodge. I'm the County Commissioner for District 5 and the Chair of the Board of Commissioners. I want to thank the party for hosting the forum and for hosting the one after this one. If you've been to any of our meetings, you know how much I love talking about county government. So I'm glad, even though that we're Zoom only today, I'm glad that we can make that the focus of our meeting today between the 2 forums. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm a lifelong Michigander, a licensed master social worker, and a professor of social work at the University of Michigan, where I teach graduate level policy courses. I've committed my entire career to public service and improving the lives of others, and that's the perspective I've brought to the Board of Commissioners since I've taken office in 2021, and have been leading the board as chair since 2023. I'm running for re-election because I believe that everyone across our county should have the opportunity to be healthy, to build wealth, and to be safe. No matter where you live in Washtenaw County, you should have access to quality and affordable health care, and transportation shouldn't be a barrier to you seeing a provider. You should be able to get a good job to provide for yourself and your loved ones, as well as build wealth and purchase a home. And of course, you should feel safe no matter where you are in the county. Your zip code should not determine the opportunities that are available to you, but for so many, that has been their reality. And that's why I've worked as hard as I have over these 2 terms to make tangible changes in the lives of our residents. I'm proud to have been able to lead our board and the team at the county in making historic investments in the communities and individuals that need it most. So I want to share a few of the highlights. If you come to our meetings regularly, you know I'm the vice chair of the party, and I take the opportunity to go through what I call sometimes Justin's greatest hits. But today we're going to talk about a lot more of the big successes we've had in Washtenaw County. I want to talk about first some of the huge wins that impact District 5 specifically and the eastern part of the county more broadly. The big one, the big ticket item here, is us being able to break ground on the East Side Community Recreation Center within the next month or so is what I'd like to, hopefully it would be in early July. So if you haven't heard about this one, this is a project I think there have been a lot of starts and stops on over the last couple of decades. It just hasn't been the right combination of elected officials to get the job done. But between who we have at local, county, state, and federal government, we've really been able to work together to secure roughly $30 million to make this project a reality. We know that there are a number of benefits to having community centers and recreation centers, largely for kids, but for adults too, in communities. One of the challenges we've seen in the eastern part of the county is disparities in gun violence and differences in health outcomes, and a wide number of other disparities that will be addressed by us being able to have a space like that. So I'm very happy to have been working with Congresswoman Dingell and our friends at the state legislature and the local governments that have been supportive of that. This will be transformative for many in our community. So stay tuned for invitations to the groundbreaking on that one. I also want to highlight what we ended up calling the Community Priority Fund, which was an $8 million program that we set aside specifically for the 48197 and 48198 zip codes. It focused on addressing educational disparities, expanding early childhood education programs, and getting resources directly to households, whether that's work to improve job access or whatever needs you may have. It's pretty similar to our Barrier Busters program, which many of you may have heard of, where if you have an emergent crisis, the county has worked to be able to get dollars directly to people. And of course, addressing housing and homelessness, and we've done some work specifically in that area in the eastern part of the county and more broadly, but that's the next set of things I want to talk about. Also very proud for us to be able to have allocated $2 million to community violence interruption programs. I live in Sugarbrook. It's one of the neighborhoods in Washtenaw County where we see spikes in gun violence. And we've worked creatively with the sheriff's office and other partners to look at other non-police focused strategies for addressing community violence. And the programming that we've funded has done that too. For my residents that live in the more rural parts of District 5, the investments that we've made in stormwater and sewer infrastructure, as well as us committing the $15 million to ensuring that there's access to broadband internet across all of Washtenaw County, has been huge. We've talked about this over the years, but access to broadband internet is more than just being able to use the internet. I mean, the pandemic really highlighted how it's necessary for telehealth and being able to engage in educational programming. So I'd say those are all really transformative wins we've had, particularly for the eastern part of the county and in the more rural parts of the county that I also represent. Now, looking more countywide at some of the bigger wins we've had, we know that we're in a nationwide housing crisis, and to address that here in Washtenaw County, our board has allocated more than $10 million to Housing and Human Services. We often describe ourselves as county government as the safety net to the safety net, and we take that commitment incredibly seriously. We also know, though, that we can't solve many of these crises alone, and the $10 million is just to start there. Hitting my 30 seconds there. Thank you, Rayanne. The last one I want to throw out here too is the commitment we've made to supporting the seniors in Washtenaw County. We made a $4.5 million allocation to that. We know that's the beginning, and I'd say tune into our meeting next week to see what we might be doing next. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over now because I don't want to go over my time, but looking forward to the rest of the conversation today.
Thank you, Mr. Hodges. Ms. Mills-Chapman, if you would like to make your opening remarks.
Sure, thank you so much. Good morning, all. My name is Leah Mills-Chapman, and I am running for Washtenaw County Commissioner for District 5. The campaign in which I'm running is a grassroots campaign, and it is one that focuses in on the harm that is often imposed upon the constituents within District 5. We hear oftentimes all of the great things that's being done, but that comes from the top. It doesn't necessarily come from those that are the ones being adversely affected within our area. I live in West Willow, and so I see the continued gun violence. I hear the gunshots at night. I hear the police that is ripping up and down the streets without any, sometimes without cause, and other times with great cause and severity. And so the campaign in which I'm running is looking at the lack of inclusion of voice and the lack of inclusion in regard to access. I am an Ypsilanti native, and for 18 years, I was a single mother of 2. And I raised them here within the county for much of their lives. And the reality was very stark and eye-opening as I had to struggle to survive and care for my children with meager means. I believe that there needs to be more attention that is placed on individuals who are looking for a living wage on the eastern side of the county. I interfaced at many times with various systems within this county and witnessed firsthand the racist practices that were embedded within our systems and upheld, right? The disparate treatment that was imposed upon myself, friends, loved ones, was definitely present there. And the outcomes of these practices towards Black and Brown individuals and even other marginalized populations of lower socioeconomic status that continually increases within our county is adversely affecting the mental health and the management of their lives. Maslow's hierarchy of needs speaks about just basic fundamental rights that all humans should have before they can self-actualize. And we are missing this within our county government as we see the disparaging acts within the 23 divide. This also became very salient to me outside of my own personal life, but also in my experience in my profession. I too am a licensed master's level clinician. I've worked for Washtenaw County CMH. I developed the Black Lives Matter Task Force for Washtenaw County Community Mental Health because of, again, the disparaging acts that I was seeing imposed upon staff internally, as well as the consumers or the clients in which we served. So interfacing with our criminal justice system, working along with our youth that's in the judicial system, looking at our youth and family systems that have to interface with the healthcare systems within our county, having to interface with our judicial systems within our county, even having to interface with our county board as they present, and having mockery made of them is not something that we need to continue to move forward in our operational practices as the Board of Commissioners. It's also not okay to work for a system that services the most vulnerable of populations and not be cared for as an employee. The employees of our county government have been fighting and approaching various commissioners to assist them in being able to earn an equitable wage. We had a MAG study that was promoted, and yet we still are looking for those wages to be brought down. It should not be for us that we have disparaging acts within those people that are giving of themselves during the pandemic. Beyond, we are still in crisis at CMH. And so this patchwork, right, programming, the personal stories, the data, we've had enough of that. We are now at a time where the funding implementation needs to be brought down to the spaces in which people are being most adversely affected. And so I will actually end. I know that I have about 30 seconds left at this time, but I just want to add that permanent changes needs to be implemented to aid all of humanity and to continue not to push people to the margins, but bring them center in a measure of inclusiveness within this county. This is why I'm running for County Commissioner for District 5. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Mills-Chapman. And apologies to Mr. Hodge because I pronounced his name wrong previously. I said Hodges.
It's okay. I've been like, there's only one of me. Yeah, this happens sometimes.
All right, so then let's move on to some preliminary questions. So question number one, a large percentage of the county budget is spent on the provision of mental health services. Given the resources available to the county, are you satisfied with the performance of county government in this area? And do you think there are ways to make improvements? And we will begin with, well, we started with Mr. Hodge for the opening. So let's start with Ms. Mills for question one.
Sure, Evan, thank you. In regards to this question, I'm not totally displeased with the allocation of funding towards mental health services within the county. As I stated, there's been good work that have come out of the millage in regards to the allocation of services, the distribution of services to various smaller entities within our community. But what I am displeased with is the lack of adequate wages given to the colleagues, right? So I would work along with the Board of Commissioners, my colleagues, in looking at opening up this MAG study yet again, and not doing it so where we are honoring individuals, but yet and still we are honoring the roles and responsibilities and making certain that we are no longer outliers and pushed out of studies because we are not making equitable pay. And so that is one area in which I feel we could do better as a county. Additionally, looking at the disbursement of the smaller funds or the funds to smaller organizations within the community, I believe that too was an awesome act. I honestly believe that it closely aligns with the desire of the community at large. Again, the issues, though, that I have with the contracts given is that they're reimbursement contracts. So if you are coming from a deprived area, and we often say that individuals who are closest to the problem are closest to the solution, then that means that we need to function and operate from an equity lens. So I would work along with my colleagues to remove this as just a promissory note that they cannot cash, to move it into something that is actually tangible, to level the playing field, as if they were as large as our larger entities, and honoring the fact that they may not have liquid cash to begin, but if they were honored enough to get the contract, then we should make certain that service provision is moved forward. So again, I will look at reconstructing that contract, reviewing it, and making certain it's equitable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mills-Chapman. Mr. Hodge?
All right. Look, the reality of this is that the mental health funding situation we find ourselves in is a challenge across the whole state. I used to work for a community mental health system. That's how I started my social work career. And I was there during the time when Governor Snyder and the legislature dramatically cut the budgets to the CMH system, which resulted in our CMH at where I used to work becoming a Medicaid only serving agency, and other CMHs having a lot of the challenges that we have now. The public safety and mental health millage that we have and many of the other investments we've made in CMH have been us trying to figure out how do we solve a problem that's also driven at the state level. Certainly we can do better, but I'm very proud of our community mental health system and the staff that work there. We certainly need to be able to get more funding there, and that's why we've had the conversations that we've been having at the board table around how can we better make use of the millage dollars, and how can we work in partnership with community agencies to make sure that we're delivering on the needs, the mental health needs for the people in our community. One thing that we could look at doing is looking for other sources of revenue. Our team is really effective in CMH at always getting state funding when that's available. I hear the comments too around wages for staff, and we've worked really hard to continue making those, raising those too. What we really need to be doing too is partnering with our health systems partners like University of Michigan or Michigan Medicine and St. Joe's to be able to make use of good students, since we have so many academic institutions in our community. And that's also how we can do really good with recruitment too. So we're making sure that we're keeping our workforce strong there. So really, this is another situation kind of similar to the housing crisis that we find ourselves in that it's not a Washtenaw County specific crisis, and it's not going to be something that funding alone from Washtenaw County is going to be able to solve. I've been really happy with the work that Representative Brebeck has been doing to be able to change how we're funding mental health in the state. Us continuing to support that work and doing the advocacy that we can as elected officials and for all of you as a party to be able to make sure that county governments are funded enough to be able to solve the mental health needs of our residents. And I stopped right before that last bell, didn't I, Rayanne? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hodge. All right, question number 2. Washtenaw County supports a number of organizations that provide assistance to low-income families and those experiencing homelessness. Among them are Avalon Housing and the Milan Shelter. Are there other steps the county government could be taking in response to the need for more affordable housing, both rental property and affordable homes for purchase? And we will begin with Mr. Hodge for this one.
All right, I was hoping I'd get this one first. All right, so we've done a lot of really creative things in Washtenaw County around trying to address housing and homelessness. I've already mentioned that we've made more than a $10 million investment in housing and human services. We've been doing it for emergent needs, so for people that are actively in crisis. We have a hoteling program where we'll put people in a hotel temporarily to make sure that they're not on the streets. We've invested in affordable housing and mixed-use housing or mixed income housing projects like the Dorsey Estates, because we know that really the issue that we have related to affordable housing is that there's not enough housing stock. So to the extent that we're able to, we have to partner with local governments. Quick county government lesson is that county doesn't have control over zoning. So really we need to be able to partner with cities and townships to be able to increase housing stock. And the county has always stepped up to be able to do that. And we would continue to do that going forward. We're also looking at other innovative programs like potentially a pilot for universal basic income to be able to just help people have more wages so that they can pay for the high rents that we see across the county. A lot of the challenges we have related to rent prices need to be handled at the state level. But in the meantime, we are looking at ways to be able to make sure that people are housed. I mean, you may have seen recently when we had to extend emergency winter sheltering, we're actively working on a plan right now to make sure that we're not in a situation like we were the last couple of years where we had to move very quickly on the winter sheltering strategy. So we're going to do what we need to do as the safety net to make sure that we're keeping people housed. We don't have people on the street, particularly in the colder months. And we're going to invest in innovative programming, like what we're seeing with the Dorsey Estates. And wherever local governments want to partner with us, we're going to be right there with them. Largely, we can help with funding those kinds of things. But we have plenty of ideas too.
Thank you, Mr. Hodge. Ms. Mills-Chapman, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Thank you so much. I do believe that there are other ways in which we can aid this crisis that we have. One of which is release the funding from the sheriff's department that 2/3 have been put into public safety. We need to move more over into the areas of mental health services. We understand that homelessness is a byproduct of mental health issues most times. People are living with co-occurring disorders and they're not receiving adequate services to be able to manage their mental health. And yet they wind up having to be pushed out of the system instead of being included within the system. So adequate funding towards transitional housing for our youth instead of giving them tents from the larger entities in which we are funding. They are minors. They should not be out on the street. Making certain that our recovery community has adequate transitional housing instead of saying that there is a poverty threshold in which we do not want certain individuals within certain neighborhoods. We need to operate from a space of inclusion. Secondarily, I would look at the fact that we have properties that the county is looking to sell off to increase portfolios and move out of certain areas, specifically District 5, and make certain that those properties can be used as housing entities. Individuals should not have to be out in the elements and not know whether or not they will be able to make it from day to day when we are the second most wealthy county within the state of Michigan. The funding is not an issue. It is the heart of those that are serving the public, and we need to bring that back down to a place of humanity, love one to another, and then let's not impose protective services on those that are in need. Instead of imposing harm, we need to be engaging in harm reduction, and that is what takes place.
Thank you, Ms. Mills-Chapman. I would like to open the floor up to public question now, just so we have some time if anyone had some questions. So if anyone has any questions, if they would like to hit the raise hand button, we can ask the candidates questions. All right, we have Karen Holman. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, and we will start this one with Ms. Mills-Chapman.
Hi, thanks. I wanted to address the issue about the renewal of the community mental health public safety millage. It'll expire in a couple of years. It runs for 8 years, and the Board of Commissioners, without revision, is proposing to renew it with no changes. So it'll last another 8 years, which is 16 years, almost a generation. Now, for those of you who don't know, only 30% of this millage was designated specifically for community mental health. And a lot of community advocates who would like to see more support for the social determinants of health have been speaking for months with the county commissioners, requesting a different millage, which would give a greater proportion to the sheriff's, to community mental health and other related services. We've been told the reason why a new millage isn't written is because revised with greater need for youth, for housing, for community services than there were 7 years ago. We've been told that it's easier to pass a renewal than a new millage. And yet the community has spoken passionately and eloquently for months, and it seems we're not heard. I just don't understand. To me, how important do you think it is to listen to the community, especially when the community says it's willing to give more money to support these services? And where do you stand on proposing a new millage? Thank you. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm sorry I went on so long.
So that's quick and easy for me, Karen. I wholeheartedly support the separation of the millage, which would mean bringing about a new millage. I believe that both needs are necessary. Public safety is necessary for the community, as well as mental health needs are definitely necessary. When we have a healthy and a whole community, then we can actually bring down some of the areas in which individuals are feeling more threatened with their physical persons within our community. So I wholeheartedly agree with the need for separation of that. If the millage does not pass and it is not renewed, I believe in honoring the voice of the people. I additionally would want to come alongside the people and see exactly the areas of concern. I've already started doing that in the work that I do. I work along with our union representatives. I actually was endorsed by the HVALF to say that, hey, we need to make certain that we're centering these dollars on what matters, and that is mental health services and provision to the community. And I'm also working along with other grassroots organizations that saying, listen, our mental health needs are not being met. And so there needs to be more allocation of funding that is given to, yet again, smaller entities that understand and have walked the life and had the lived experience of those that are adversely affected at this particular time. So yes, I would wholeheartedly give to the renewal of a mental health millage separate from one of public safety, and make certain that we handle that first, and then we may actually have a decrease in violence, from gun violence, from the increase that we're seeing with suicide within our community. All of these things, I believe, will be remediated and brought down if we first honor the need for mental health services. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mills-Chapman. Is Mr. Hodge still in?
Yeah, I'm here. Evan, is my audio okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. Karen, can you hit me with the question again? I think you've asked me this in public comment before, but I'd love to hear it one more time. I want to make sure I get it right.
Oh, I lost my train of. So I was just, for people who don't know, the community mental health public safety millage, that's how it was named, was passed 6 years ago, runs for 8 years. Yet a lot of us didn't know that only 38% of that went to community mental health services. The rest of it was unencumbered. It could go for any reason, 38% to the sheriffs, 24% to those who don't contract with the sheriff. So it's going to expire in a couple years. And originally the commissioners voted just to renew it as is, and people were told that that's because they felt it was easier to do a renewal than a new millage, and yet the community has been advocating, those who support, who want to reduce violence, who want to support our youth with the suicide rate going up, housing, all sorts of, which you mentioned that you're in support of, right? And so a lot of us would like to see more than 30% of this millage to go to community, the social determinants of health and well-being, instead of to policing, right? And so I'm actually a little gobsmacked that it seems like all the eloquent discussions requesting a different millage, because that one ran for 8 years, the next one would run for 8 years. That's almost a generation. Times have changed. We do not live in the same world we lived, 6 or 8 years ago. There's greater need. The housing across the country, yes, these are nationwide problems, but we're suffering here. This is a community with a lot of heart, with a lot of intelligence, progressive community. The state of Michigan is a leader in good governance. And I just don't understand why the commissioners is not taking it upon themselves to make a new millage instead of this old one that will give more funding for social determinants of community well-being. I'm sorry, that was not succinct. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You don't have a time limit with your questions. I got a time limit with my answer, so I'll be as succinct as I can be. Just to, at a high level, to say something about the millage. The Board of Commissioners votes to put millages on the ballot, and then the community, the voters, choose whether or not you want to pass that millage. The conversation around the public safety and mental health millage that the voters approved, that it's going to be on the ballot again, most likely, for people to have another discussion. But to try to change some of that in response to community members that we have heard, keeping in mind that we listen to community members besides just the ones that come to our meetings, which is a smaller group of people and in particular parts of the county. We have been trying to be thoughtful and listening to more than just people that show up there. We've done some work around the ordinance. And I know this will probably come up in the next forum, because I'm very proud of the work that Commissioner Somerville has done in leading and trying to make changes to that ordinance. There's specific changes that we're going to be making that earmarks some of the money that goes to the sheriff's office for more of those kinds of programming that you and others that have come to speak to us during public comment have talked about wanting to do. we recently talked about the health department has been very focused on suicide rates, particularly suicide rates related to gun violence. Those are coming down in Washtenaw County, in large part because of the work that we're already investing in, both in the health department and through the sheriff's office. The work that we've been doing in partnership with the sheriff's office around community violence interruption work is possible because of the millage. So I understand that people would prefer, some people would prefer only a mental health millage. We'll see what happens with that, right? Like, we're going to vote likely to put the millage back on the ballot, and then the voters get to choose what happens after that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hodge. Are there other members of the public who would like to ask questions of our two candidates? All right. Going once, twice. All right. I can ask them one more question from my list of questions. Let's see. Discussion persists over the importance of crime reduction and increased trust between law enforcement officers and the community they serve. How should the Board of Commissioners and the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department work together to achieve these goals? Mr. Hodge, if you would like to take that one.
Yeah, thank you. I think part of this is it's a challenging question to answer because we just don't have one law enforcement agency in Washtenaw County. So we have a wide variety of Ann Arbor Police, Ypsilanti City Police. The universities have their own police forces. The police force that we have the best level of ability to engage with is the sheriff's office, as you mentioned. And I think that the board currently works as closely as we can with them, and I expect that we will continue to work with them if the millage passes and continued dollars go there, particularly given how much interest there has been by commissioners in making sure those dollars are going to what we would think of as non-traditional policing services. Having a sheriff's office, so having an elected person that runs a police agency is different than the other police agencies that we have in Washtenaw County. That's just the nature of how our system of government and how it works with different police agencies. So partnership around and thinking creatively around, I'll give an example of the police services contracts. It was mentioned earlier about the millage, where if you are a local government that doesn't contract with the sheriff's office, they get some funds from that millage. But if you are a local government that does contract with the sheriff's office, it's on all of us in county government to be working effectively there to make sure that contracts are fair and that we're able to provide appropriate policing. So I would say that making sure that there's a collaborative relationship by a group of commissioners and the elected sheriff to work together on many of those kinds of issues is going to be really critical. And it's something that I know that myself and colleagues on the board are committed to. While the sheriff's office is a separate elected official and it's a person that runs their own office, county commissioners still have responsibility to engage with them, just as we do with the prosecutor, the clerk, the water resources commissioner, and the treasurer. So that's something that we would just continue to work together on, close partnership and collaboration with all levels of county government.
Thank you, Mr. Hodge. Ms. Mills-Chapman.
Thank you. So the question asked about how would the Board of Commissioners and the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department work together specifically, not other policing agencies. And so when I look at District 5, the primary policing agency within my district is WCSO, right? And I see the daily over-policing of my neighborhood and other surrounding neighborhoods within this particular district. This neighborhood is primarily made up of Black individuals and some, again, of lower socioeconomic status. And the over-policing of this neighborhood is without just cause. When you are afraid of the people that you serve and that voted for you, you will look at them through a lens of more disdain and pushing them to the margins than you will see them as human beings at the very core. So before one can actually govern and preside over people as a county commissioner, it is my belief that you first come and meet the people, that you develop a rapport with those individuals and relationship with them, you join with them, right? Additionally, as the Board of Commissioners, I would look to build about a partnership with the officers, their leadership, the residents, and the county commissioner at large, commission board at large. I want us to be able to have more accountability, transparency, fun, and true community together, because that is possible to do as an elected official. This starts with humanely honoring the presence of an individual, right? Not polarizing people and making them feel as though they don't believe within this county or should be within the county. Additionally, I would say that we need to have community service projects and community events. Yet again, have fun and eat together. It builds healthy attachment, which will assist in the decreasing of some of the community violence. We also additionally need to have monthly and regular reporting from the sheriff's department so that we have more oversight on the operations and the functions of this department and not allow for them to be able to just govern themselves without any sort of oversight and be able to interface with our community as they so choose. Lastly, I would say that we need to have regular assessments of the community trust of the policing strategies and practices that's going on. And we also need citizen review boards. If we establish independent review boards, we can oversee the complaints and adequately resolve them for the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mills-Chapman. We are getting close to time, and I want both of our candidates to have enough time for their closing statements. So you will have 2 minutes for the closing statements. So, yeah, two minutes. 2 minutes. So, Ms. Mills-Chapman, if you would like to make your closing statements.
Sure. Thank you so much, Evan. And thank you all for listening. In closing, it's my desire to bring back to the Board of Commissioners a more humanistic, empathic, transparent, and accountable presence. We need to center our governing practices on honor and respect of all people within the county borders and not operate as a board that makes a mockery of people's pain or one that looks to penalize and or criminalize their pain. And this includes the most vulnerable and marginalized of our people within this county. Yes, those individuals that are without a permanent address in the county. Yes, those that are of lower socioeconomic status. Additionally, those professionals that serve with blood, sweat, and tears this county without equitable pay. And individuals that don't look like, speak like, talk like, or even live life like you. And it is my desire to render honor, respect, and empathy once elected to all people. It is easier to get bees with honey than it is to get it with vinegar. So we must remember that we live in a democracy and not a dictatorship. So leading with respect and joining with the people instead of a top-down authoritative approach of governance is what I desire to do. And after building rapport and joining with my constituents, I am looking forward to bringing them alongside with me to include them as an intricate part of creating their government. They are the ones living this existence and none can tell them what is best for them. So I believe in co-creation, and this brings about unified government and not one that ostracizes and or demonizes its constituents. I believe that this type of government is possible. And in the areas of governing that I may not be so well versed in, I will work diligently to learn the operations most effective and efficiently in my role of county commissioner once elected to serve you, my constituents. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Ms. Mills-Chapman. Mr. Hodge.
All right. Well, thank you, WCDP, for hosting the forum. Evan, thank you for moderating. That's not always an easy thing to do, but very much appreciate it. So I'd say our campaign is about making our county a place where your race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status don't determine your destiny, a place where everyone has the opportunity to thrive and be successful. I think we've had some tremendous successes in moving forward with that as a vision. I think about, and I've talked to this group frequently about my children's savings account program, where we're getting all kids in Washtenaw County a savings account for college so they can dream and plan for the future. I think about work that we've done to launch a financial empowerment center where everyone in Washtenaw County can get access to free financial counseling and funding to help pay back debts. I think about the work that we've been doing to improve health outcomes, particularly in the areas of the county that are most vulnerable, like mine, and the incredible work that we're doing to be able to get mobile services out to places like the Mobile Support Services Initiative that Commissioner Sanders is championed and that we all work together to make happen. So I say, if you support the work that we've been doing and much of the work that I've done and have talked to you all about, I'm asking for you to vote for me again and continue working with me to move Washtenaw County forward. There's been a lot of conversation today about the public safety and mental health millage and criminal justice more broadly. A couple of other wins I want to highlight are that we've funded a conviction, integrity, and expungement unit that is really a model nationwide. We've funded an economic justice unit that goes after businesses in our community that are engaging in wage theft and other inappropriate business practices. We've worked to reform court fines and fees so people that don't get trapped in a cycle of debt and poverty because of their engagement with the criminal legal system. So there's a lot that we've been able to get done, and I'm excited to be able to keep working on that. So if you want to learn more about my vision and how you can support us, visit the website, votejustinhodge.com. And of course, I'm asking for your vote on or before August 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Hodge. And with that, I would like to again thank Mr. Hodge and Ms. Mills-Chapman for coming to speak about their candidacy for the District 5 Commissioner position. And with that, I would like to turn the floor back over to Mr. Eli Nathans.
Thanks very much, Evan. Next up is the candidates for the District 6 Board of County Commissioners seat. So I'd like to welcome Ryan Hunter, Kat Layton, and Andy Somerville. Ricky Jefferson was invited, but unfortunately had a conflict and therefore is not going to participate. I'm going to follow the same format that was followed for the District 5 panel. Each panelist will have 5 minutes to make introductory remarks. Rayanne Weymouth will continue to do an exemplary job as the timekeeper. And again, the cycle will take place alphabetically by last name. So we'll start with Ryan Hunter, move to Kat Layton, then Andy Somerville. First question will go to Kat Layton and Andy Somerville, then Ryan Hunter, etc. So everyone gets an equal opportunity to answer the questions in turn. After I ask a few questions, then the floor will be open to questions from the audience. And then at the very end, each candidate will have a chance for a 2-minute closing statement. Any questions about the procedure? Seeing none, I'd like to ask Ryan Hunter to make
Eli, just quickly, 5 minutes for their introductory again?
5 minutes for the introductory statement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ryan Hunter.
Okay, good morning. Can everyone see me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, you're coming through loud and clear. Okay,
thank you. Good morning. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to join this panel, and nice to be able to meet with everyone and see everyone. As said, my name is Ryan Hunter, and I am excited to be here as a candidate. And I'll just tell you a little bit about my background, but I'll be brief. I was born in Ypsi and currently reside here. I love this community. I love Ypsilanti. I love the Ypsilanti community. I love the people. I love the culture. I love everything about where we are. Not to say that things can't be better, not to say that there isn't room for improvement, but just to say, generally speaking, that this community has allowed me to become the person I am and become my truest self and thrive. My background is that I've grown up across the community, I should just say that. I went to school at Roberto Clemente and attended Huron High School and eventually graduated from Stone. So I kind of have a little bit of a patchwork of high school education, but it's an experience I think many of our young people have shared with me as you're growing and learning who you are. I did attend Washtenaw Community College, and I graduated from Eastern Michigan University. After graduating from college, worked for a little while before I was afforded an opportunity to work for Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, where I served on her staff for a number of years as her community representative for the Ypsilanti and Belleville area. It was an awesome experience working for her, learning from her, and also being able to spend some time with Mr. Dingell in his final years with us. He was an amazing community servant and someone that I admired tremendously, as well as Congresswoman Dingell. So it was just an awesome opportunity. From there, I have worked and I've volunteered on a couple of different boards, including the board of directors for the Ann Arbor Area Transportation Authority. That was, kind of an eye opener to learn about transit in kind of a close and intimate way, learning all that goes into that. I thought serving on that board would be something about, deciding routes or, maybe what colors go on the bus, but it was so much more than that. It was about learning about what the carbon footprint of the organization was, and just learning about transit in a very, very deep way. And every time I was in that meeting, my brain was getting stretched. So it was awesome to learn about that and figuring out ways to connect our residents to different points of the community and allow for opportunities for people to go to work or do recreation and just live their lives. I also volunteered on the 21st Century Policing Task Force. And, so Ms. Chapman spoke on the last panel about the creation of the relationships between public safety or sheriff's office and the community. That was one of the oversight boards that were part of that effort. And it was an honor to serve on that board, learning about policing and learning about ways we can improve services. Now I currently serve on the Ypsilanti board, Ypsilanti Township Board of Trustees. I've been there for about a year and 5 months, and it has been a great experience. These experiences working for the community have instilled in me a strong passion for public service, how to make our community better, how to make our community thrive. I believe that if I am elected, I could be a voice that unites all of the Ypsilanti community, whether it's Ypsi Township, City of Ypsi, or Superior Township. I wholeheartedly believe that we can grow together if we're working together. I have in my campaign, I have what I call the Care for District 6 plan. It's a plan that has a couple of different tenets that I'll talk briefly about. There's an economic development pillar, which I'm looking to bring new long-term businesses to the Ypsilanti Township, Ypsi, City of Ypsi, and Superior Township community. Support business development along Michigan Avenue, Holmes Road, and Eforce Road, all areas that can be developed and grow, and create jobs. And by bringing businesses into these areas, we'll create jobs and opportunities for individuals in the community. Excuse me. Also, I want to work on housing and bringing housing opportunities into the community and allowing for affordable housing and low-income housing, and also bringing fiscal responsibility. So full transparency and working closer to provide fiduciary oversight and be sure that our tax dollars are being spent responsibly. And also working to increase or to restore and improve trust into our public services. So with that, I'll yield my time and we'll talk more as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hunter. Kat Layton, you're next.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Could you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thanks for everyone for being here and to the Washtenaw County Democratic Party for hosting this event. My name is Kat Layton, and I am running to be your next Washtenaw County Commissioner in District 6. As we gather here on the first day of June, I want to take an intentional moment to recognize the significance of Pride Month and the upcoming Juneteenth celebrations. These events remind us of the ongoing struggles for equity and justice within our community, and they underscore the urgency of addressing the systemic issues that affect so many of our neighbors today. I grew up in a trailer in the country outside of a small town in Texas named Smithville, which is a community of 4,000 residents. And like all of us, my life was shaped by local government decisions before I was born. Both of my parents lacked the community services, which would have prevented the harms they experienced and enacted as adults. Because of the local government, my mom had no financial support to escape intimate partner violence. Because of local government, my dad turned to crime and substances in his youth and was unable to escape poverty and the long-term effects of felony convictions after serving his prison sentence until his death in 2004. And because of the local government, I attended underfunded schools and grew up witnessing economically and racially segregated neighborhoods. 30% of the residents in my town have low literacy rates, and nearly 20% of residents fail to graduate high school, which is a rate 5 times that of Washtenaw County. Local elected officials in my county in Texas failed my family, and local officials are failing residents in Washtenaw County today. Bureaucratic delays in Washtenaw County enacted by our elected officials has resulted in thousands in our community suffering from preventable harms. I cannot allow this status quo to continue. As your county commissioner in District 6, I plan to transform our local government into a body that centers public service and human services. I moved to Washtenaw County almost 8 years ago to pursue a career as a social worker and a community organizer for the most marginalized among us. And since becoming the neighbor and a neighbor to you all, I've personally served as a board member for A Brighter Way, an appointed committee member for the 206 North Washington Street Avalon Housing Development Project in the city of Ypsi, participated in the Washtenaw Equity Partnership as a subcommittee member, which released a report, and contributed to the Voting Access for All Coalition, expanding voting rights access to those who are in pretrial detention. I currently serve as a Human Relations Commissioner in the city of Ypsilanti on the advisory board for care-based safety and as a supervising clinical social worker for Master of Social Work interns at Fed Up Ministries. And I'm on the advocacy committee member for Metro Detroit Restorative Justice Network through the Detroit Justice Center. And when elected officials fail to act with urgency, our neighbors fall further into poverty. They fail to receive health care and become more likely to fall prey to the criminal legal system, which is where I spent almost 10 years of my professional career doing as a criminal defense social worker and a mental health professional for CMH in the county jail in 2022. It is time for Washtenaw County commissioners to prioritize public service and action over photo opportunities and inconsistent politics. We must do better to appropriate public funding, increase institutional transparency, and center public safety and well-being. I'm looking forward to guiding Washtenaw County into a brighter future as a commissioner with unwavering commitment to my values. Thank you, and I look forward to the rest of the discussion.
Thanks very much, Ms. Layton. Annie Somerville, you're up.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to currently serve on the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners representing District 6, which covers the city of Ypsilanti, Ypsilanti Township, and Superior Township. I'm running for re-election for similar reasons that I ran the first time. I'm committed to further enhancing human services in Washtenaw County, but specifically for some of our most vulnerable folks in Ypsilanti and Superior Township area, improving access to housing and increasing support for youth and older adults in Washtenaw County. This work is very personal to me. I grew up in periods of extreme poverty as a child. I experienced lack of access to food, water, or electricity in my home, and experienced unstable housing. And I also watched my mom struggle with substance use and housing insecurity her entire life. In 2008, my mom died after 2 years of sobriety when she had stable housing. She was homeless for 2 weeks and before she died. There was a long time where I thought my mom died from a drug overdose. And in recent years, I've been able to kind of really unlearn that mentality and realize that housing access is what prevents people from dying in those situations. And had my mom had support, like for things like permanent supportive housing, she would still be alive today. And so I try to take that lived experience and all the decisions that I make, whether it's making sure that we prioritize funding for nutrition access for programs like food gatherers, or whether it's making sure that we fund things like rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing and eviction prevention. I saw before I got on the board a lack of attention on housing support. And that was one of the reasons why I decided to run for county commission in the first place. And I know that we have a long way to go to continue to improve housing access. And that's one of the main reasons why I'm running for re-election, but also to improve life outcomes for youth in Ypsilanti. For 20 years, people in this community have asked for a community and recreation space where families and youth and older adults can congregate together and build community and have a safe space, not just to play basketball, but to engage in arts and mentorship and entrepreneurship. For a long time, they've asked for that. And finally, we are really on the path to breaking ground on the new Eastside Community and Rec Center. And that was a huge priority for me when I took office. Within the first 6 months of my term, I helped secure a $15 million state grant with Senator Jeff Irwin and Representative Jimmy Wilson. And that's a good reminder to mention that in my full-time job, I work as Senator Irwin's chief of staff, and that role in particular, before I was his chief of staff, I was his constituent services representative. And through the thick of the pandemic, I was on the phone on the front line helping people get access to unemployment benefits, SNAP benefits. And so throughout the last 6 years. We hear about some of the vulnerabilities that exist in our county, but I talked on the phone with these folks directly, and so it's been able to give me a better eye into where the gaps in our system are, and that's the stuff that I take with me when I'm making decisions, whether it's in my capacity on board leadership or the board table, because there are a lot of voices that don't come into the boardroom and tell us how this stuff actually looks and works outside of the boardroom. And that's the perspective that I try to bring. What's actually happening on the ground? What's actually happening when somebody calls the call line? And so we have a lot of work to improve access to services in Washtenaw County. I'm committed to continuing to do that. And I'm really proud of the work that I've been able to do with my colleagues to improve the system, but we have a lot of work to do. There are a lot of inequities in this county, and basic access to housing, to water, to food, those are some of the key elements of why I do this. And that's my bottom line, is making sure that people have their basic needs met. And so I appreciate being here. I'm looking forward to the questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Somerville. I'm going to start with a few questions myself. I should say I sent the candidates the questions in advance of the meeting, so they had a chance to reflect. And the order of responses will be Kat Layton first, Annie Somerville second, Ryan Hunter third. If the public safety and mental health millage, or some variation thereof, is not renewed, how would you fill the gap in funding that would result? Where would additional funding come from? And where might services be cut if no additional funding were found? So, Ms. Layton, you're first.
Yeah, thanks. So I first want to bring attention to the fact that I think this question imposes that there is a risk to current programming that to cease to exist when and if and when the millage is not renewed. And that is simply not the case. According to the April 8th Millage Advisory Committee meeting for CMH's allocated funds, it was said that they have funds available to last their programming through December 2026, should there not be a renewal of the millage. And so I think that speaks volumes to the ability for us to take a pause and to really hear what the community is asking for, which is a separate millage, that it does not combine public safety with mental health. I think that when we do combine the two, acknowledging in the ordinance that public safety is overseen by the sheriff's office and that mental health is overseen by community mental health, we're saying and implicitly saying that we are criminalizing and tagging these two things together, and as if those two things are mutually exclusive and related. But in fact, people who are mentally ill are more likely to be victims of violent crime than they are themselves to be the perpetuators of a violent crime. And so while we have the time to sustain existing programs, I think that we need to also develop a more comprehensive and less harmful millage that centers people and communities rather than systems rooted in harm and violence. So I would propose writing a completely new millage that separates mental health from public safety and that puts money into the human services. It's absurd that the public safety sheriff's department budget is 10 times the size of human services departments in the county. If we acknowledge that our county, our sheriff's department has the ability to put some of its money towards mental health things and housing things, I don't know why those just can't come straight from human services so people can get the front end of their services met.
Thank you very much. Ms. Somerville.
Yeah, thank you. And so, I think that if the millage does not get renewed, we would have a year in place to be able to put something back up and try to get something else renewed. My hope is that we are in a situation where we have to talk about cutting programs or pulling money from other areas and taking away from some of the other great work that we're doing, like on the East Side Rec Center, like in housing and like in nutrition. A lot of the funding currently that comes from the millage is actually directly impacting the East Side. A lot of the organizations that partner with both CMH and the Sheriff's Office are Ypsilanti based. I think that the conversations around the millage have notably been very complicated and confusing for people. Back in 2017, when the millage was written, there were 3 different buckets, one for CMH, one for the sheriff's office, one for a local reimbursement. And there have been a lot of questions since. And the last few months, we've had a lot of discussion and had public comment related to this to both get feedback and make it make sense. And I will just be completely honest that it is still, I understand that it's still very confusing. One of the things that I am hopefully working on doing, because I really do want the millage to pass and to address some of the feedback that we've gotten, I've proposed redirecting 50% of the public safety money to other things that actually promote public safety, non-traditional policing mechanisms, like actually investing in rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing and harm reduction and community violence interruption, in addition to making sure that more of those dollars are used on behavioral mental health, specifically mental health for deputies, because that's feedback that we've gotten from the community. So part of the proposal that I recommended that redirects 50% of the 38% in the Washtenaw County Sheriff Office bucket of the millage would do that. And it's hopefully a way to help bring people along who have had major concerns, because we need the millage to pass, and we need to continue doing the work and making sure that people in the most vulnerable parts of our community still continue to have access to the services that are being provided. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hunter.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So basically, to answer this question, this is a difficult question because there's a lot of consequences. So I would first like to say that in order to fully answer or to create a route forward, we'd have to have more information. We'd have to gather more information. So, but to attempt to answer the question, I would say that millages are typically renewed. I think once a community has elected to receive services, they don't typically pull those services away and vote against them. So I think the millage stands a fairly good chance of being renewed. But in the event it isn't renewed, I would propose that the county put forth a study how to fund mental health, how to fund mental health and public safety. In the meantime, I do believe that the WCSO has a fund that will last roughly a year or so. That money could sustain services as they're being offered. This would supplement those services as we are working toward the study and building this study out. However, if we exhaust the resource, we may have to look at other ways to tighten our belt and make sure that services aren't cut, and that we would find money from existing programs to continue mental health. As we're all saying here, mental health is extremely important. We cannot undervalue mental health. So many crimes are not crimes. It's only because there isn't mental health services in place to provide to people that actions become criminalized. So we must continue funding mental health services. In the meantime, if the millage were to fail, I would say, well, you get 2 bites at the apple. So let's revise the language, perhaps split the 2, and then put them on the ballot again and move forward.
Thank you very much. Next round of questions. The order of answers will be Ms. Somerville, Mr. Hunter, then Ms. Layton. The coordinated funding partnership between Washtenaw County and various public and private organizations for distributing and coordinating funding for providers came to an end in 2021. Has the new human services partnership that has taken its place been a success, or is there a need for further examination of the funding model for service providers? Ms. Somerville.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So the changes to the coordinated funding and the creation of the new human services partnership all happened before I took office last January. And one of the things that I'll say is across the system, whether it is nutrition services, whether it's housing, whether it's youth support or older adult support, we have gaps. And when we had the coordinated funding, we had other partners at the table and we were all sharing information. And so everybody knew who was being funded, what the amount was, and where the gaps were. Right now, we still have private partners funding specific programming in the community, and we also have the county providing funding for providers in the community, but it's harder to know what others are doing without the coordination. And so while I'm proud of the work that our staff has done and the decisions that my colleagues have made to continue funding, and we've actually increased the funding despite the fact that we don't have the partnership anymore with the private funders, I'm really proud of the work that we've done to continue funding programs. And really a majority of the funding that we've put out for the new human service partnership has gone to organizations in the 48197 and 48198 areas, But I will say that it's not sustainable in the long run for the county only to fund a lot of these partnerships and to do it in a way where we're not able to know what the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation is doing, or what some of the universities are doing, or what United Way might be doing. And so my hope, and some of these conversations have already happened, is how we can get back to a place to where we were all coordinating. But I will just say again, I just want to thank the colleagues that were there before me who still made a commitment to make sure that we were funding these really critical services, despite the fact that the coordinated funding is no longer there with the other private organizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hunter. You're muted.
Oh, there we are. Yes, indeed. It was changed, and I believe it was changed for a reason. I think the reason was because it really wasn't working well. The way it stood before, I understand it to be that it just basically relegated the same group of the same entities to receive the same funding over and over again. And when you have the same kind of cast of characters, then that limits the amount of services you can provide, because you're just giving it to the same people who are doing the same things. So with the changes being made, I think that's opened the door for, to allow for more equity and more diverse services to be provided to the community. So I think reverting back to anything prior to 2021 would be a mistake. Not to say that the process can't be improved and that we can't look at ways to, tweak things here and there. No process is perfect. There's never going to be a perfect silver bullet solution that fits every single slot perfectly. You always need to be willing to revise the programs that you're offering and how you're going to deliver them, and criteria. So I'm completely open to that, but I do believe that if we revert back prior to 2021, that we would then reduce the amount of services we could offer, because we would be reducing the amount of organizations we're partnering with.
Thank you very much. Ms. Layton.
Sorry about that. I had to unmute myself. So thanks for the question. I just want to bring attention to as someone who has spent nearly 10 years and on the direct field service work, being a social worker, working in criminal defense work with people who are accused of crime, who can't afford an attorney, working in the county jail as a mental health professional, working with mental health court and the law enforcement assisted diversion and deflection program as a former CMH service coordinator. I have seen the actual impacts that our clients and past clients have experienced. And I have felt powerless with and for my clients for many, many years because of the lack of encompassing and comprehensive systems and the different gaps that our county commissioners are acknowledging the bandages that they are applying. And so when people call HAWK, the Housing Access for Washtenaw County, they have to leave a message sometimes, and it's impossible to leave a message when you don't have a phone to be called back. If you need a place to stay, the Delana Center is not an emergency shelter where you can just show up and just be there. There is a wait list. If you need a place, you might have to be suicidal to go to the psych ER, or under the influences of substances to go to the engagement center, or commit a crime to go to the jail. And there are no other options. And so Band-Aids are done. We do not need any more Band-Aids. We need to start actually looking at ways that we can divert some of the money from the sheriff's office and put into human services. And that will be the biggest way that we can help support our most marginalized community members who overheat in the summer and freeze in the winter. Washtenaw County is powerful and not under-resourced. There's a lot of things that we can do that are not uncomplicated, and that necessarily we don't need to do extra research that just delays more meaningful movement. And we need to actually just hear what people are saying and get to the work.
Thank you very much. And on that note, I'm going to open up the floor to questions from the audience. So if you would please raise your hand, and I will call those who raise their hand in the order in which hands raised. So Karen Holman, you're first. You may unmute yourself.
I'd like to ask all the candidates, what are their priorities for I know this changes from year to year, but what are your priorities for dispersing money in the county's general funds? Thanks.
Thank you. So the order of responses here: first, Mr. Hunter, then Ms. Layton, then Annie Somerville. Mr. Hunter.
Well, again, thank you for the very easy question. I will say that for dispersing funds, I've always tried to use my seat at the table as our seat at the table. I think that, sorry, I'm getting some bad echo. Try to fix that. Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, my seat at the table is our seat at the table. I believe that, what I'd first seek to do is meet with the community. So going out and holding, whether it's town hall, coffee hours, meeting with constituents, wherever they may be, getting a sense of the priorities that we as a community want to see. I think that before we start dispersing money, we got to know where this money needs to go, where this funding needs to go. Right now, the way it sits, I don't believe we have enough interaction between Township, the city, and Ypsi Township. I'm sorry, the city of Ypsi and Superior Township. My first order of business would be bringing us all together, figuring out where this money could best be applied before we then disperse it. I will say I do find that mental health services definitely needs to be a priority. Housing needs to be a priority, and then creating pathways for folks into, like I said, affordable housing. We talked about this the other day. Affordable housing, low-income housing. Creating those pathways forward for folks would be a priority for me, but certainly I'd want to be collaborative with the community and hear what you all would like, and then see how we can push those agendas forward.
Thank you very much. Ms. Layton.
Hi, yes, thanks for the question, Karen. First, I think it's important to acknowledge that even with the millage money, the reason why CMH has a surplus that they do to last programming is because some of the programs funded by the millage haven't been fully accessed. For example, when I was in the jail working as a mental health professional, I often found that we were having budget issues and unable to provide some people with different materials because of these budget issues. But when you look at the Millage Advisory Committee funding financial reports, you see that there's a deficit of underspending in certain areas, but right on budget for others, including a crisis stabilization center at 750 Counter that actually hasn't been a 24/7 crisis center for a few years now. And so my priorities, as I also state on my website, catforcounty.com, is reimagining public safety beyond traditional policing. And that doesn't mean just saying we're going to invest dollars into a certain area. It also means creating laws and resolutions that actually do that and actually codify that. So rather than saying that we're public servants that prioritize affordable housing, how are we going to actually do that when it comes to the law, when it comes to resolutions, to make sure that that is codified and set in stone? In the city of Ypsilanti, for example, there was a report that came out in 2020 from a citizen subcommittee of the Planning Commission. And that information was not even taken seriously to start putting laws into place to protect affordable and accessible housing in the city. But instead, the council members at the time, who are also in other positions now, are utilizing different developments as a way of saying they're affordable housing advocates. But affordable housing is more than just reaction to developing more permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing. It's also developing policies and laws that actually support those efforts on a larger level. And thank you.
Thanks very much. Ms. Somerville.
Yeah, thank you for the question. When I ran, I had almost served 4 years on Ypsi City Council, and we had little to no interaction with county government to bring us resources that we needed in the community. From day one, I've made sure to bring resources, not just to programs that the elected officials said needed to be funding by community members. And so throughout my time in the last year and a half, I have demanded that the county invest more in Ypsilanti and Superior Township. We've invested significant dollars in things that are free events for the community, like Ypsi Jazz Fest. We've also invested in different youth programming initiatives that community members on the ground are doing, because we can say a lot about what we care about, but money actually matters. And so that's what I've done since day one. I've had the county and my colleagues actually invest more in Ypsilanti. When there were senior when there were dollars being allocated for senior funding, for example, I fought to make sure that Ypsi Senior Center got more than what was originally proposed because it wasn't adequate enough. Ypsilanti, both Ypsilanti Township, Ypsilanti City, and Superior Township deserve more support from the county, and that's what I've been trying to do for the last year and a half. That's what I have done, and that's what I will continue to do if reelected. Some of that comes down to just making sure that if somebody calls at 10 o'clock at night and says they have a resident who needs to be temporarily hoteled, that means I'm going to call the county administrator and get that person temporarily hoteled, and that money comes out of the general fund. I am the probably most annoying commissioner to administrative staff at this point, because when something needs to be funded in my district, I make sure that it does. And when people need emergency services, I make sure that it comes out of the county general fund. And I make sure that I'm not wasting my time there. And so I think it's really critical to be able to do that and make sure that your community is adequately being funded. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question will come from Eugenia Quintanilla, if I pronounce that correctly. And the order of responses will be Ms. Layton, Ms. Somerville, Mr. Hunter. Please ask your question.
Hi, my name is Eugenia Quintanilla. I'm an Ypsilanti resident. I've lived in Washtenaw County for 6 years, going on 7 now. Personally, I've seen people in my community spaces suffer from county mismanagement of funding, and I'm curious. And specifically, I'm thinking about somebody that I know that I dance with at my studio who lost her job as a result of her place of work not receiving county funding on time. And I know that that happened under the current commissioner board, and I'm sure y'all are doing great work, but I'm curious as to how you're going to move forward in actually fixing those mistakes for candidates that are running for the seat, but also for, Commissioner Somerville, who currently holds the seat. What is your concrete plan for making sure that these mistakes or oversights don't happen if it is the case that you continue in your position or that you take the commissioner role? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Ms. Layton, you are first.
Thank you, Eugenia, for the question. So I think that there needs to be a better oversight process, specifically thinking about how a lot of people assume that transparency in government is Open Meetings Act and knowing that we can go onto the county open book and see what's being done. But like someone else acknowledged in this meeting or in this forum, people don't have capacity to attend every single commissioner meeting, attend every single committee meeting, and know what's going on. And unfortunately, Open Meetings Act only requires people to do minutes and decisions and not really the robust dialogue that led those people to those decisions. And so I would really want to have a more accessible government. And that includes the oversight process. And that means not having the county commissioners necessarily be the people that are deciding and determining whether or not the programs that they are funding are doing the right job or doing the best job. I think that that can create a little bit of partialness whenever we have the people who are being the funders trying to see what the process is for those who are receiving the funding. And that can cause nonprofits and different programs to feel like their funding is at risk of being jeopardized whenever their current county commissioners are up for reelection. And so I think that we need to have a better multi-step evaluation process that really involves a third-party person to ensure that oversights are not happening. And the 24% that the local governments with police forces received from the millage, there is no way to be able to view what that funding has been going towards. And so people are not confused about what's happening. People are upset that they know what's happening is not what they originally had asked for. And so again, we need to be ensuring that we are having an encompassing process that involves many people's voices, not just the ones that we see repeatedly in the same room.
Thank you very much. Ms. Somerville.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Eugenia, for the question. First, I'll just say, if that organization or person is comfortable connecting with me offline, I would love to find out more about what happened. So for people who don't understand or have never been in a position where you're the fiduciary for a city or a county, and then you have staff that actually implement what you approve, there are a lot of things that we don't see directly happening behind the scenes. And so if there's an RFP process for grant funding that an organization applies for and they don't get it, or they do get selected and for some reason it takes longer than expected, we don't necessarily always know as commissioners that that's happening. I have had constituents or organizations that serve in my district reach out in the past, and I've helped resolve some of those issues that have happened. But unfortunately, you know, I can only do that if I know about it. And I will also say that it is challenging to know every issue. And I see your comment about our house. Okay, so our house, I will say, because I worked on that, both in my capacity working at state level government, there was an issue with actually the state MDHHS department and their timeline on some new rule changes and the rate that they were going to be implementing. And so I have talked to our house actually, and it really was a state level issue that they were in. Unless they applied for some county funding that they didn't get. And again, commissioners aren't involved in that. If there's an RFP process, for example, with the new human service partnership, we are not involved in who gets selected and then gets moved on to the next level. Those are all independent citizens that review those applications, and they are recommended to the board. We do not have any direct connection to the RFP process, and nor we should not as elected officials, because that's how situations can happen where you've got a friend that has an organization and you make sure that they get funding over another organization. So we're totally removed from the RFP process. And so some of the issues with our house are legitimately state level issues that I and my boss and Representative Wilson have been trying to help them work through way above county government. And then I would just say, just generally on county level RFP processes, commissioners are removed, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't know if there are issues happening behind the scenes. And so I would recommend that if that happens, you reach out directly to whoever the commissioner is that represents that district, and we'll try to work out what's happening if there is an issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hunter.
Thank you. Yes, transparency, I think right now is a very relevant issue. I think within the county, we have seen a number of examples of what I would say questionable investments in county resources with regard to, I know if people have been following news events, right now we've had certain staff members that I don't think have been the most responsible with handling county resources. So on my website, ryanforwashtenaw.com, I don't know if I can plug or not, but I'll do it. You know, I do plan to be fully transparent, you know, posting all of my receipts for things that, you know, whatever expenditures I do, you know, so that you know exactly where money that's coming into my campaign, how that money is being allocated and where it's going. I think that is a right. I think as a public official, you, the people of the public, the community have a right to know exactly how your money is being spent. I would encourage that the county become fully transparent, whether it's sharing, you know, obviously we're doing things like broadcasting our, you know, the Board of Commissioners, I'm sorry, is broadcasting their meetings. I like that, but let's be, you know, go further. Let's post executive summaries of what happened, not just meetings, but let's say step by step through the process, what's happened, and share that with the public. I think that transparency it's a right. This is not up for dispute. It's not up for debate. Right now, I think the Ypsilanti community is in a tight situation. And the more transparency we can allow, the better the community will feel. Also, in addition to that, we're not talking enough. Like I've said that in my opening statement. Part of my plan for transparency would be having meetings across the District 6, having these meetings in different parts of the community, sharing exactly the work we're doing, sharing how we're spending the money of the community, and then having everyone with open eyes, with open books, see the work we're doing. So whether that's having meetings at Superior Township, having meetings in the city, having meetings in Ypsilanti Township, that's the work. That's what I'd be pushing for in terms of the work I'm doing, so that everyone can have the eyes on all of our books. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have time for one more question from the audience. So I'd like to ask if there are any more questions. Yes, Desiree Simmons, you may pose your question.
Hello, thank you. Good morning, everyone. One of my question is more about thinking about the team and thinking about county commission across all the districts in the county and how to how the candidates in their role, if they were elected, would really help to bridge some of the, I think, information gaps about needs that are happening across the county and to help address some of the lack of connection and experiences to what's really happening as people vie for money for their districts and services. And really thinking about racial and economic justice and how to help all of the parts of the county to come together to help us address the real issues on the ground.
Thank you very much. The order of responses will be Ms. Somerville, Mr. Hunter, then Ms. Layton. So Ms. Somerville, you're first.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I'll just start by saying that in 2020, the county started using a tool to have at hand anytime decisions were being made at the county called the Opportunity Index. The Opportunity Index shows where there are gaps on things like jobs and healthcare and just broadly opportunity. And so when we make decisions, we kind of know how each decision is going to have an impact on racial equity, but also the Opportunity Index. And so I think it's important to highlight that District 6 has the highest concentration of lowest opportunity in the entire county. We've got pockets of wealth in District 6, but we have significant pockets of opportunity gaps. And so naturally, a lot of the focus in the last few years has really been on the east side of the county, but specifically the Ypsilanti Township, Ypsilanti City, Superior Township area. I think the Opportunity Index tool is a great way for us because it also highlights the rural parts of the county that have low opportunity access. And so it's a way for us to kind of see that. But for anybody that hasn't looked at it yet, if you pull that map up, you'll see where some of the biggest gaps for residents are in the county. And to no surprise, I think you'll see where the eastern side of the county, but specifically District 6, has the highest concentration of low opportunity. So I'm constantly looking at that tool. I'm really excited about some of the stuff that we're doing to close the opportunity gap. Where the new East Side Community and Recreation Center is going to go is like right in the heart of the lowest opportunity zone. And that will be a way to provide direct access to not just county services, but also access to entrepreneurship and mentoring and arts. And so right now, the new Superior Township Library is one of the newer elements of opportunity that have been in place in Superior Township, but we need more. And so I think the Opportunity Index is a great tool for us to kind of see broadly where the gaps are in the county, and I'm happy that we're using it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hunter.
Thank you. So if I understand the question, may I ask, is it possible to get a repeat of the question?
Yes.
Is that allowed?
Ms. Simmons, would you care to repeat the question?
Sure. I'm asking about what your role would look like in terms of working with the other commissioners around racial and economic justice and understanding how we need to bring together resources to impact these communities, even though they're trying to receive funds to support different services for their communities as well.
Thank you. Yeah, so I would work very collaboratively with my fellow commissioners if I'm elected. I think that collaboration is the key. We don't work in silos. The more time we're spending apart, the less I think progress we're making in finding any solutions. And right now, it feels to me or seems to me that our communities are totally siloed across Ypsilanti anyway, whether it's the township, the city, or Superior Township. We're siloed. We're not talking enough to each other. One of the things I would do is work with fellow commissioners to, hold regular meetings in the community to meet with whether it's our local experts, folks working in nonprofit, folks who are actually on the ground doing the work to bring justice. We need to be talking to these people, having conversations with them and figuring out where needs are at. I would plan to, meet in regular intervals, going to each municipality, having conversations and opening up dialogue with each local municipality in the district. So whether it's going to board meetings or city council meetings and meeting with, the leaders of those communities, so that we're all coming to the table together. We have to bring everyone to the table right now. This is not a one-person solution. This isn't going to be a one-person fix. So one of the things I would definitely prioritize, I mean, yes, the opportunity index is one tool, but I think beyond that tool, we need to be having a feel for what's going on in the community. And the only way to do that is to go meet with people and start building the relationships up right now. Instead of building up walls, we need to be building bridges together that meet in the middle so we can find these solutions. And that would be one of my first ways I would certainly prioritize, working towards, this solution that we're discussing here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Layton.
Hi, thank you. So first I want to appreciate the question from Desiree. Staying informed about what impacts and engages our community should not resemble piecing a puzzle together. And when individuals are reduced to their most basic instinct of surviving, the burden of doing anything beyond that becomes overwhelming and disproportionate. And so constructing a brighter future necessitates collaboration and mutual accountability. And so some of the things I thought about with the question about how could the county play a role in this inter-district type of partnership of knowing what's going on in their districts on a more local city level or township level, I think that it would be imperative and important to have county commission reports available to those meetings, at least on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, to be able to let those different municipals know what's going on the county level. So that way those conversations can be brought up in the local level as well, and the municipals. I also think that we as commissioners need to be more involved in the community, not just through our Board of Commission meetings where we have, ample time to speak about different issues and people in public only have 3 minutes. It's really hard to kind of get what you need to say out in 3 minutes. And it's also really hard to really know what's going on whenever you're not able to attend every single meeting and be in tune of what's going on. And so leveraging technology and data analytics can play a really significant role in bridging information gaps and really taking part in attending these different local districts meetings to be able to know what is going on and to bring that information from the state to the municipals and vice versa to be able to better advocate. And as a social worker, providing resources and being able to fill in gaps where gaps exist is something that I have had the opportunity to get acquainted to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have now reached the 7 minutes to the end of the meeting mark, and so there's just enough time for 2-minute final statements by each of the candidates, and we will actually end up going in the same order that we started with the statements. So Mr. Hunter, you are first with a 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you. As time goes quick, I'll tell you that. So thank you for having me. And it's been a pleasure to speak with everyone. And I know it's a little bit different doing it this way online. I certainly like to meet with people in person and hope we have the opportunity to do so. But I'll tell you that in the time I've been serving on the Township Board, the Ypsilanti Township Board of Trustees, I've learned a lot, and I've seen where the needs are in parts of our community. And then going out abroad, I see the greater needs. One of the things that's come up that really prompted me to get into this race, I suppose, was when we were discussing the sheriff's contract. Right now, the township is reconsidering its relationship with the sheriff because we can't quite come to terms with the contract that we both agree upon. And while I've been part of that process, the thing that I've observed is that those that could be bringing us all to the table and helping us work toward a solution have really not done that. They've not been building that bridge. They've been helping build that wall. And who loses in that? It's the community. The sheriff's office, they do a fabulous job providing services. And I think having that continuity would be tremendously awesome for our community because people we know and we trust the sheriff's office. If we go elsewhere, we have to start again from scratch, and who knows how that might work out. I'm working my best to be sure that that works out. But, we're going into unknown territory. I say that to say that I think the role of a commissioner is to unite the community. That's what I want to do. I want to bring us all together because I believe in us. I believe we are stronger together when we're talking and listening to each other. I hope we have more chances to do that in the future. And again, thank you for having me. And if you want to learn more about me and the work we're doing, follow us at ryanforwashtenaw.com. Thank you so much for having me. Have a nice day.
You too. Thank you very much. Ms. Layton.
Hello, everyone. Thanks again for being here, listening, learning, and engaging. And thanks again for the Washtenaw County Democratic Party for hosting. Again, I'm Kat. I'm running to be the next county commissioner in District 6. If you would like to further connect with me to discuss some of the issues I'm prioritizing in this grassroots campaign, we need people with all strengths, skills, passions, and capacity levels to help. Like someone said, we are very siloed and all hands on deck are needed. I will be at the 7th annual Ypsi Pride Festival on Friday, June 7th from 5 to 10 with merchandise for sale and literature. So you can come see me there. You can also find me on Cat for County on Instagram and catforcounty.com. And as I mentioned in my opening statement, my journey into this work began when I lived in Smithville, Texas, outside of there in a small trailer where government decisions shaped my life and my family's life before I was born. And to now being able to see the experiences fueling my passion for change, bringing me here to Washtenaw County nearly 8 years ago to work as a social worker and community organizer. Since moving here, I have served in many roles as a person, as a volunteer, as a concerned community member and resident, not as a person affiliated with an office or a political role. And that really, I think, speaks volumes to the deepened understanding I have for the systemic issues and the personal urgency I feel for meaningful action. Our county is plagued by bureaucratic delays. And so equal opportunity should be a reality for all people. And it's time for a county commissioner to not only publicly acknowledge our community issues, but also act urgently, prioritize public service, and ensure public funding is used effectively towards human services. And I am dedicated to reimagining public safety, enhancing transparency and accessibility in local governments while providing equal opportunities. And together we can create a Washtenaw County where everyone can thrive. Thank you for your time and support, and I hope to make the change happen.
Thank you very much. Ms. Somerville.
Thank you. Yeah, so I appreciate everybody being here on a Saturday. And I'll just say again, I decided to run for county commission because I wanted to improve human services in this county. And I wanted to take my lived experience and be able to help other people. I hope that over the last 40 minutes, it's clear that I not only have progressive values, but I've actually been able to get things done to help serve some of our most vulnerable people, especially in the Ypsilanti and Superior Township area. I love Ypsilanti. Growing up in other places in Michigan, this is where I felt the most like home. I got to meet people in the community when I waited tables through college and in my time working to help constituents both at the state level and now at the county level. I'm really proud of the work that I've been able to do and the fact that I actually understand what it's like for somebody to call because they're worried that their electricity or their water is going to get shut off tomorrow. It sits with me because I was a kid and I remember what that was like. And I care a lot about kids in Washtenaw County not having to go through that. Kids in Washtenaw County not having to be hungry. Kids in Washtenaw County having access to services and support to make sure that they can be their best selves and follow their dreams and not have to worry about where they're getting food from, not have to worry about if they have someone to mentor them and help them with their homework. And I also care a lot about helping some of our most vulnerable older adults. And so I'm going to continue doing what I've been doing for the last 6 years, which is helping people. I hope I'll have an opportunity to continue doing that at the board level. And I hope I'll have an opportunity to continue bringing resources, money back to the 48197 and 48198 area, because that's what has been lacking in this county for a long time. And finally, we have commissioners that represent the Ypsilanti area that are all working together to make the Ypsilanti and the surrounding areas on the 48197, 48198 area community whole for once, because look at the opportunity index. It is very clear where there are gaps in the system. And I believe that I'm the best to continue doing the work to close those gaps. Thank you so much. And you can find more information about me at thoughanniesomerville.com. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you very much. That concludes our program for the day. It actually happens to be exactly 12 p.m. I want to thank all the candidates for taking time out of their schedules to answer questions, kind of be put in the hot seat, and in this way to reach out to their larger community. Thank you also to those who came to the meeting for coming. I appreciate that. And I hope I will see you on July 13th, when we will have the judicial candidates. And this time it will be in person. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.